leaders, I was remotely involved in the Abacha loot and Mobutu loot conversations and processes. The Swiss refused and insisted, Professor Olukoshi is here, that we should prove that the money was actually public money. That in the absence of proof, they were not willing to return the Pan-African Lawyers Union and several African entities have started doing this. The meeting today was to say it's inadequate to have a few of us. I am not trying to prove myself, my pain, to any European. I'm not trying to make legal or technical sense. How did Leopold's Congo become Leopold's? My brothers and sisters, there's no Tarzan raised by monkeys that's going to come and save us and fight against the predatory instinct of recolonization. We're not going to negotiate ourselves out of the quagmire we find ourselves in, where globalization is militarized and financialized, by pleading the accuracy of the mathematics of the extent to which we've been looted. No, nobody's ever going to admit. Even the Catholic Church is offering 100 million, yet we paid America through Sudan, 343 million for 200 people. Why? Millions of Africans are worth less than 200. I'm not mocking those who died. It's just to remind us that this conversation is racialized. It's racialized because even amongst ourselves, we have bought this logic. This logic that actually says, for some reason, we must make sense to the thief, to the looter, to the robber. We must make sense to the rapist. We must make sense to ourselves. Do we have bad governments? We have terrible governments. But the Americans, Madam Chair, have worse. Kissinger, who died recently, finally history has begun to judge him. And yet our kids studying international relations were studying the Kissinger doctrine. Whitewashed, enslaved, and etc. So in ending this conversation, Madam Chair, the African Union sent a study tour to CARICOM, to Barbados. The African Union agreed to adopt a common Africa position on reparations. The African Union allowed or asked that they be hosted a reparations conference. That reparations conference suggests a joint AU CARICOM position and a United Nations reparations resolution. There is a rethinking globally of multilateralism, and Lillian has told us it ought to be anchored on a reparative economic logic, a reparative institutional logic. If you ask a stupid man like me, because I'm not an academic and I'm not trying to dethrone or minimize the importance of intellectual rigor, let me say this to you. I was a lawyer, and I think a reasonable lawyer, as my friends here will tell you, and accounting firms, consultancy firms, bankers, every day are continuing the legacy of slavery, of colonialism. ALJAZEERA is pay first, and then we'll talk later. Now, here is an understanding we must get. My ancestors, Ayob, the Monday Charter of 1325, passed not far from here, the first written constitution in the world. It wasn't the French, it was an African, the Monday Charter. It had in it reparations as a principle. Shona culture, Kikuyu culture, Hausa culture, Yoruba culture, all of them have repair as a central piece. So as we go home having discussed reparations, the fundamental question is, how do we produce the knowledge, the scholarship? How do we produce the public narrative? How do we produce the dialogues? Not to end, because we're not going to win the reparations argument tomorrow. It will suffice if everyone in this group starts a fire that keeps burning 20, 30 years from now. Because what was stolen and the discovery of what was stolen None of the speakers talked about technology, inventions done by slaves, by black people under colonialism and under apartheid. Nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about how the Royal Dutch Company stole from the Khoi and the San cattle that made them wealthy, that they sold to other people. Nobody. My friends, nobody talked about your ancestors who worked for free labor. Free labor, rendered free labor. And how do I quantify that? Easy. The colonial system that sent my ancestors underground into mines and did not pay them, that forced them to come and work on white plantation by imposing taxation on them. It documented how much tax it was collecting from the natives. Now the granddaughters and the grandsons of the natives are here. It's payback time. Thank you.